Okie dokie. I think orientation is locked, so I can't horizontal this thing. Let's see. Nope. All right, we're doing vertical. I have no idea how the chat works when I'm on my phone. There's not going to be any call-ins tonight, unfortunately, because I don't think I can do Zoom. What's up, Mr. G? Good to see you guys found it. Yeah, no calls in tonight. And I hope my computer isn't permanently borked, but it is can't it's not even picking up any Wi-Fi networks anymore. Hopefully a restart will fix it. But I was talking about Chinese puzzle balls before I cut off, and I was just talking about how they're not recognized as OOPArts by the scientific or history community. They're fully recognized and discussed, and I think that's largely because they're still being made today. But it is ridiculous the level of detail and precision in the clearances that are achieved on these things that in ancient history. It's mind blowing, and even being achieved today, it's still mind blowing. They're just a mind blowing thing, whether you want to classify them as an OOP art or not. They're really really cool. I thought they were worth showing off. So keeping with the Chinese, but moving on to the topic of medicine, the Chinese had smallpox vaccines 1,000 years ago. So 1,000 years ago, they were crushing up smallpox scabs, and then blowing it into people's noses, which is exactly how a vaccine works. You take the dead and weakened virus and put it in a small quantity, and then give it to a person. They were pretty successful. And there's all sorts of alternate Chinese medicine that, of course, was heavily discredited for the last several decades and is now getting some recognition. Um, and you find this all over the world. Like in Greece and Rome, they had silphium and nepenthe. It seemed to work though. Say what you will, but they had some pretty good results. So, um, but silphium, you likely have heard of if you're into this kind of stuff. It's the birth control plant that was used in Greece and Rome that was so effective that it was cultivated to, or I guess not cultivated, but harvested to extinction. Um, it's recently a guy thinks he found it, and he may have. Um, I don't think they've tested it for its anti-pregnancy properties, but it seems to fit the bill otherwise. Um, but basically, it's a hard plant to cultivate. It's hard to grow. It grows in specific conditions, very specific conditions, and so it was just harvested from the wild until it was nearly, if not completely, extinct. But it was an extremely effective birth control. It was even on their money. Roman coins had silphium plants on them. And then they also had nepenthe, which was an antidepressant, essentially. And silphium is recognized as real but extinct. Nepenthe is still considered mythical, but there's way too many accounts and evidence of it being used. I fully believe it was a real plant, and I fully believe they had a whole lot of other medicines as well. These things were understood. People were not stupid savages. They had very advanced medicine. Um, and I've talked about the trepan skulls before. Nepenthe, not naphtha. Um, no, it's pretty easy to grow. Uh, but you do got to watch out for mold a little bit. But the trepan skulls that I've talked about previously, Peru and the Aztecs, or maybe the Mayans, I'm not 100% sure which one, but in Peru, that was actually, I think the Mayans, um, one of the locations and times where they were achieving over 90% survival rates, which is significantly higher than our survival rates today. Um, they had a very good understanding of medicine. And I had some images pulled up on my computer that I can't show now, but there's a skull of a Peruvian skull, and he's got a metal plate fused into the side of his skull successfully, by the way. Um, he had a a skull fracture, a pretty serious one. You can see the aftermath of it. You can see the fracture remnants still. There's a whole like circle that was caved in on the side of his head, and they cut out part of it and replaced it with a metal plate, and the dude survived. And they were doing this 2,000 years ago, even before, uh, more successfully than we are today, for the exact same reason. A head injury, a skull fracture. That's why we perform craniectomies today. That's why they were doing them in the past, and they were doing them better than we do. Um, and then staying in the theme of medicine, I watched this special on the History Channel, like way before I was even into this stuff, well over a decade ago. And I've pretty much been off and on looking for this thing ever since, and I've never been able to find it again. But it was this beautiful, either Greek or Roman, I think Roman, but I'm not 100% sure because this was so long ago. But it was this beautifully adorned golden syringe. It was in absolutely mint condition, absolutely perfect, zero damage, looked like it was brand new. I don't remember the motif that was on the sheath, but it had this golden sheath that had these figures, these 3D figures on it. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it was a hypodermic needle with a plunger. So you could insert this needle into someone's eye, wiggle the cataract loose, and then use the plunger to suck the cataract out of that person's eye. I've never been able to find an image or a mention of this golden cataract syringe, but I do remember it very clearly in this special on the History Channel, and being blown away by it. And in my search for it, I've found out some very interesting things about cataract surgery in the ancient times, and it turns out it was all over the place. Um, Over 5,000 years ago, people were doing cataract surgeries in multiple different parts of the world: India and Sumeria and Egypt and Greece and Rome. All these places, Greece and Rome got it a little later, potentially. But they were doing cataract surgeries and other surgeries as well. There's a Sumerian text that talks about doing eye surgery, and if the it I think it was 5 silvers maybe is the price of an eye surgery. This was written in law. This was encoded in part of the Sumerian law, was a set price for eye surgery. And if the doctor blinded a peasant, a commoner, due to cutting in through their temple and doing this eye surgery. So they weren't even going directly into the eye. They were cutting through the temple and performing surgery on the eye. This doesn't sound like a cataract surgery. This is some other type of eye surgery. Um, and if they blinded the patient, then they had to pay half the patient's value in silver. And if it was not a commoner, if it was not a peasant, then the doctor's hands were cut off if they blinded the patient. So this surgery was performed. It seems to have been a pretty routine surgery, and one that had a high rate of success. Um, you find references like this, like I said, all over, not just Sumeria, but in India, in various parts of Africa. It's in the Middle East. It's kind of crazy. Like the idea that these people were just primitive savages is absolutely insane. They had medicine, they had surgery that they were doing better than we are today. Pretty nutso stuff. So Man, I have flown through this list. I thought this was going to take me much longer. I don't have any of the images to show, so that's slowed me or sped me up a little bit. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Derveni papyrus. So yeah, get them chickens. Um, I need to. I've previously stated that there was not a single written word from any Greek or Roman surviving today, and it turns out that's not 100% true. Um, there is the Derveni papyrus, Derveni papyrus, which was found, and this is at least allegedly a Greek text that is surviving. You can look up images of it. Um, it was not a book. It was not a manuscript. It was not anything of any real significance or importance, but they are actual Greek words written by a Greek person. And so the claim that there's no Greek text surviving is the claim that there's nothing of, there's no journals, there's no stories, there's no actual texts, as in like books, surviving. But as far as just written words, there are a few. There's like beer receipts for beer that have been found, stuff like that. So I was not 100% accurate when I said there's zero written words from the Greeks or the Romans. There's just nothing of any significance. There's things like beer receipts. So, and then this one's pretty fun, and this one also relates back to Quetzalcoatl a little bit. I want to read through the chat real quick. Victory to Islam, of course. But I don't know if the lag is better. I'm gonna go ahead and say 1, 2, 3 now, and you guys let me know when you hear that. Um, just because I'm curious. It might be a lot less lag on my phone because I know because I have a shitty computer. The lag is pretty extreme. There's nothing before Rona. Yeah, our doctors could use some laws like that now. They are basically just butchers now. I um I took myself off the organ donor list because you can't harvest organs from a dead body because the organs are dead. That's all I'll say. Um, it was a person script. Okay, so it's not too yeah, it's way less lag. Assuming Mr. Watson was responding to me there, it's way less lag on the phone. I'm probably not going to stream like this though because I can't show you images, I can't have call-ins, but I guess it's good to know. So the last thing I wanted to talk about were the mercury rivers found under pyramids, and all of the mercury found all over pyramids. So in South America, in Peru, and these other locations, there is red powdered mercury found underneath pretty much all of the pyramids that we've found so far. A decent amount of this red powdered mercury underneath all these pyramids. Very strange. Why? I don't know. And then even more strange is under Teotihuacan. I don't I don't know what that means, Mr. Watson. Um, but underneath Teotihuacan in Mexico, there is there's evidence that they had flowing liquid rivers of mercury underneath that pyramid. Um, to make liquid mercury to turn that red into liquid mercury is extremely dangerous. You have to heat it, and that gives off mercury vapors, and the vapors are you're dead, bro. Like it's not like playing with mercury where you might get a little bit of poisoning. It's like those vapors kill you quick. They mess you up quick. So to make large quantities of liquid mercury would be time consuming and difficult and just extremely dangerous. And you find rivers of it underneath Teotihuacan. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if you found them elsewhere. And this relates to Quetzalcoatl because he's this mythical figure, this god figure that comes and brings technology and all of this stuff. And Ancient Aliens is constantly talking about liquid mercury. The Vimanas from Hindu texts supposedly ran on liquid mercury that's in the texts themselves. And we really don't know what mercury was used for in the ancient past, but it was clearly important. You find it in these important places in important, or not important, in large quantities. Um, like, why go through that trouble? There really is no good explanation, and so I don't have an explanation either. So the best one I have is Ancient Aliens were using it as a power source or something. I really have no idea, but it is very interesting. You also find that you not only find mercury underneath the South American and Middle American temples and pyramids, but you find them underneath the Qin burial in China. So the one of the most impressive emperor's tombs, the Qin burial tomb or Qin or however you say it, um, there were again rivers of liquid mercury. They recreated the rivers in the oceans and seas of the local area of the world, but of around China in the tomb with liquid mercury. Was that just to show off? I mean, maybe was the terracotta army just to show off? I guess if you're building, 10,000 plus strong army of clay figures of unique, individually created clay figures, plus, I guess what's recreating the waters of the world with mercury. I guess that fits in line as just being baller as fuck. But it is a very strange thing. These large quantities of liquid mercury that are found in these significant places and specifically underneath these places. So that is all I had to talk about for this week. I would love to say if anyone wants to call in, go ahead and give a call in, but there's no calls. I could go on. There are other subjects I could go on about, but I think I'll save those for another week. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. There's lots of reports of giant magnifying glasses in history too. The Middle East and Rome and Greece, Rome or Greece maybe, later Rome and I think early Greece. Um, they were probably true. I mean, a lot of again the don't underestimate the power of destruction. The people were That's one thing I will talk about. I talked about it already, but I just want to re-emphasize the weirdness of this. The Antikythera mechanism, 2,000-year-old Antikythera mechanism, was not written about until 1,400 years later. A description of the Antikythera mechanism is first found in a text 1,400 years after the Antikythera mechanism was developed and lost. Really makes you question that phantom time hypothesis. There's a lot of weird stuff around the medieval times, and it's stuff like that that really makes me go, man, that would make a lot more sense if it was only a 400-year gap instead of a 1,400-year gap. But yeah, I wish I could have calls ins, but I can't tonight. Sorry, fellas. Um, Let me know if there is any interest in a Discord. Like I doubt there is yet, but or if I think most of you, if not all of you, are in the low value mail Discord, and I hang out in there, so we can just take that over a little bit until there's a need to actually make my own. Um, like, subscribe, you know, do the good stuff, comment, hook me up. But yeah, hopefully you guys found this stuff interesting. I think the Lycurgus Cup is really really awesome, especially just because of the ridiculousness of the explanation of it was just purely an accident. This guy didn't have any idea what he was doing. He just fumbled his way into this masterpiece. So, and that's a common theme. That's a common theme you see a lot. So, yeah, I'll see you there, Mr. G. And I don't know. I'm guessing the X ends this. So peace out, fellas. I'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in and peace out.